As you can see, I'm not just MAGA, I'm dark MAGA.
Is everything that happened on Thursday, the great devolution of the Elon-Trump bromance, all just part of a giant conspiracy where tech giants take over the United States government? Well, according to dark MAGA or dark enlightenment conspiracists, yes. It's Friday morning, and what a night we've all had. Trump and Elon have turned on one another, publicly dismantling any suggestion that the two had an amicable breakup. I mean, we all saw and lived through the love bombing phase. It was saccharine sweet in that it was obviously fake and left us all with a very thick mouthfeel. But there was only one way for all of this to end. The two men could only coexist as long as they both agreed to protect each other's secrets, and they seem unwilling to do so anymore. And even though some of the threats and statements have already been walked back, there's simply too much that's been let out of the bag, even though some of the so-called bombshells that have been dropped were, in my opinion, kind of weak. Like, oh, Trump is in the Epstein files, that's why he didn't want to release them? Who could have known that?
Would you declassify the 9/11 files?
Yeah.
Would you declassify JFK files?
Yeah.
Would you,
I did a lot of it.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
All right.
I guess I would. I think that less so because, you don't know. You don't want to affect people's lives if it's phony stuff in there because there's a lot of phony stuff with that whole world.
Well, as far as this conspiracy goes, let's talk about J.D. Vance. If you'll recall, Trump never wanted Vance to be his VP. He wanted Maria Bartiromo from Fox News because, of course, he did. And you know who did want J.D. Vance? Elon Musk and fellow tech billionaire Peter Thiel. If Trump went with their guy, then Trump would have access to hundreds of millions of dollars in campaign donations. Now, maybe these tech billionaires really just wanted Vance because he was a smart, strategic vice presidential pick. He was a self-described hillbilly from Middle America who could help secure that part of the country for the Trump ticket. Or maybe Vance was their pawn all along. The conspiracy goes that the tech giants see the United States as a giant corporation. Elon Musk has said as much. So if the billionaires want to control the world, which of course they do, then they would have to take over the biggest corporation in the world and run it as a business, which is something that Republicans have successfully convinced half of the country should be done anyway. Never mind the fact that corporate business practices feed those at the top before those at the bottom. Rather, they feed those at the top with that which they have usurped or conned from those at the bottom. So these tech billionaires groomed J.D. Vance to be their man on the inside. Vance's ties to Thiel were known long before he became the vice presidential pick, so you can see how these conspiracists got here. The plan all along, allegedly, was to install Vance as the vice president, then take down Trump, and then they would get to control their new puppet president, J.D. Vance. The origin of this theory comes from Curtis Yarvin, an Ivy League-educated computer programmer, all the way back in 2008. He believed that higher education and the media are controlling the public, which are refrains that we are used to hearing these days. And he said that democracy is not the ideal form of government here in the United States. A monarchy is, but rather than have a king per se, we would instead have a dictator CEO. So here's what the implementation of this plan would look like according to Yarvin's plan, and maybe some of it will sound familiar to you. Federal employees would be fired in such quantities that the government would no longer be manageable. Elections would be deemed obsolete. Policies would engender fear and distract the population. The dark MAGA or dark enlightenment theory says it is the remit of the tech billionaires to run the world because they are the only ones with the resources and the know-how to fix it. To Yarvin, who likes to philosophize in computer idioms, democracy was outdated software and government needed a reboot. Yarvin has been cited by several of Trump's advisory team members, including Elon Musk and Steve Bannon. He has appeared on Tucker Carlson's and Charlie Kirk's show. He was even invited to Trump's inauguration. So who, then, is the real enemy of democracy here? Is Trump actually the face of democracy in this very, very specific scenario, with Musk and his tech cronies the adversaries who are trying to take over the government from Trump and appoint their own dictator CEO in his place. Well, following the events of Thursday, MAGA is now changing its tune on Elon Musk. Elon Musk, in their eyes, at least as far as they would say publicly, was once a genius and an expert businessman who was so good at doing business that he deserved to be given free reign over our federal government, which should be run like a business, to cut thousands of jobs and entire departments and take all of our data to do whatever he wishes with it. His rampant documented drug use, not a problem, hardly worth mentioning. But now his drug use is definitely a problem. Now he's probably an illegal alien who should be deported just like all other illegal aliens because Elon Musk is not special. Now he's not a genius, he's just some guy who cannot and should not be trusted with anything. It's too bad we already gave him all of that data. If I was a MAGA/Elon supporter, I would feel whiplashed right now. How can they still trust anything that comes from any of these people? I'm fine with people changing their minds when they're presented with new information. That's kind of supposed to happen. But there has been no new information. Elon is just being Elon. Trump is just being who he also has always been. Even if they both have these deep-seated dogmas that are motivating their actions and pursuits, those dogmas are always ultimately self-serving. For instance, Elon wants to take humanity to Mars because Elon wants to be the one to take humanity to Mars. MAGA didn't care about Elon's ketamine use until last night. They didn't care about his citizenship or immigration status until last night. If they had any real principles or values, last night would not have changed their entire position on Elon Musk. So let's not forget for 1 second that both of these men are terrible. I'm not rooting for either one of them, and neither should you. Ideally, they would destroy one another so that we, the actual people of this country, wouldn't have to deal with them anymore. I think they're both childish and not worthy of respect. I don't think either of them is fit to be in any kind of leadership position. And I think we, again, the actual people of this country, deserve so much better than either of these men have ever promised us. The American people have been in an emotionally and financially abusive relationship with a couple of billionaires for far too long, neither of whom have ever had our best interests at heart, assuming they have hearts. Half of us are stuck in a relationship that we cannot get out of, and the other half is still convinced that their abusers really love them and just sometimes have a hard time of showing it. We deserve better. In a perfect world, Trump would cancel Elon's government contracts. You want to talk about waste, fraud, and abuse? Cut off one man instead of cutting millions of Americans off from their access to health care. Elon has been a leech on our government for years. I am worried about NASA, but this is what happens when you privatize things like the space industry. Put the money, reinvest it back into NASA. Give it to the Artemis program. The NASA people are all just watching these juvenile tweets go back and forth, wondering if they're going to have a job next week. This is what happens when you concentrate power, like in a dictatorship or in a monarchy. The lives of millions of people are suddenly at the whims of their very changeable, very fallible leaders. And in a perfect world, Elon will reveal to the world exactly what he did to help Trump win the 2024 election. Maybe nothing besides, buying hundreds of millions of dollars worth of ads for a man who is already oversaturated in the media. But if something, now would be a good time to reveal it and delegitimize the entire second term of the Trump presidency and Trump himself as a president. Of course, if the dark enlightenment theory is right, then if Elon were to expose the president, he would also be exposing his stooge, J.D. Vance. So maybe he would think twice before doing that. But Elon has already hinted that he did do something during the 2024 election. And for the most part, Elon, it seems, does not care about Donald Trump, at least not anymore. He is heartbroken. He's over it. He's burning everything down. He doesn't seem to care about the Republicans. He doesn't even want the Republicans to have control of Congress anymore. It shouldn't be up to him, to be clear, but he obviously has serious buyer's remorse right now over the president that he bought, the president who took his money and then dumped him publicly and with all of the love lost. All right, that's it for me. If you got anything out of this, please like the video and subscribe to the channel for more. Thanks.